It all started when the cornfields on the edge of the village were again ravaged. What the farmers saw in the early morning light was nothing short of a disaster. It was as if a battlefield, not a field, had already happened during the night. Crushed stalks on the ground, uprooted soil, and broken irrigation systems. This could not have been the work of an ordinary animal. This was the remnants of an organized attack. Yes, it was them again, the wild boars. This silent war, which had been going on for years, had reached a threshold. Herds of boars were now roaming not only deep in the mountains, but also in people's habitats, in the middle of crops, even on the borders of houses. Their numbers were growing rapidly, and their damage was unimaginable. Destroying months of hard work overnight, these animals were no longer just a threat, but a nightmare for everyone living in the region. So we took up arms and hit the road once more. Our mission was clear: to defend the farmland, restore peace to the local communities, and protect the balance of nature. But this was no ordinary hunt. This was a challenge that required discipline, vigilance, and patience. If you don't want to miss these exciting moments, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned with us to witness every moment of this nature challenge. When we reached the slope of the mountain, the wind was quietly blowing through the pine trees, and the crunching of the leaves reached our ears like tiny whispers. There was absolute silence, but it was deceptive. At any moment, a pig could appear from anywhere. We took our drone into the air and started scanning the area. One of the shadows floating in the trees caught my attention. As the camera sharpened, the slow-moving shadows became more distinct. Yes, there was a swarm. There were at least 10 of them. We immediately made a tactical plan. We would set up an ambush at a point on the sloping terrain and cut off the passage of the pigs. We spread out, and each of us deployed to different strategic points. We stabilized our rifles, adjusted our binoculars, our heartbeats slowed, our breaths regulated, eyes on the trigger, fingers on the trigger. That moment, the first crack that broke the silence, followed by rustling. There was movement among the trees. The vanguard of the herd was moving slowly. A large, black, muscular male boar. He weighs around 130 kilos. With all his body language, he made it clear that he was the leader of the pack. I held my breath, fixed my aim, and bang! The silence on the hill was replaced by a resounding explosion. My first target collapsed. The rest of the herd scattered in panic. This was our second chance. My friends started firing together from different points. For a few seconds, the forest became a war zone. One by one, the bullets found their targets, and the herd scattered. Keep watching, because this is just the beginning. Subscribe to our channel and witness behind the scenes of this battle of nature. Every pig we hunted was not only a victory, but also a breath of fresh air for a farmer defending his land. But it is important to remember that the other side of this work requires a disciplined and ethical approach. Not inflicting unnecessary suffering, preserving the balance in nature, requires not only being a hunter, but also a responsible conservationist. As we slowly made our way through the terrain, we came across new tracks, new smells, and freshly excavated soil. It was clear that this work was far from over. We were informed that there was a larger herd, especially in the inner part of the valley. We headed in that direction. The drone took off again, this time higher, and scanning a wider area. Suddenly, the image stabilized. A huge herd of 20 to 25 pigs was moving slowly along the lower part of the valley. We immediately set a course and moved in. But I won't stop here, because this hunt is not over yet. Our descent to the bottom of the valley was not easy. The rain-soaked soil was muddy and slippery. Every step had to be taken carefully. Staying on your feet was one thing, keeping the gun steady was another. But experience immediately comes into play in such moments. We kept our marching rhythm with the habit of years. Communication was done only through signs. Without a word being spoken, everyone knew their duty and marched in silence. When we got within 300 meters of the herd, the dogs were released first. These brave animals were trained not to scare the wild boars, but to make them change their direction. But this time things were more complicated. The herd in the valley was dominated by large males, which made things more dangerous. The first reaction came from the lead pig. He raised his head and sniffed the wind. The hairs on his nose trembled slowly. He had sensed the danger. With a short grunt, he warned those behind him. A few seconds later, a big pig came out of the bushes. It was coming straight at us. It was a direct challenge. My hunting buddy in front of me raised his gun, held his breath, and bang! The pig hit the ground with a meter to spare. It was so close that the mud splash came up to my knee. Our hearts were pounding, but we had to recover quickly because the other pigs were starting to move in that direction. Everyone took their places. In the silence, there were only breaths and the natural sounds of nature. The dogs started barking, and the forest echoed. Suddenly, another pig appeared. This one was bigger, more agile. It quickly changed direction and tried to pass us on the side. I quickly took my position, looked through the binoculars, stabilized the target, and slowly pulled my trigger finger. The bullet found the target, just as I had planned. After taking a few steps, the pig fell to the ground and rolled noisily. When I got to it, its body weighed at least 150 kilos. It was one of the biggest pigs we had ever encountered in this area. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss these incredible moments. Every shot, every chase, we are here for you. As evening fell, the color of the forest began to change. The sky took on a purplish hue, and the shadows of the trees grew darker. Night is when wild boars are most active. We were not done. We quickly returned to our campsite, rested a bit, and checked our equipment. Thermal cameras, night scopes, ammunition, everything was ready. The night patrol began. The moonlight illuminated our path only in silhouettes, but that would never stop us. An experienced hunter knows that night vision develops not only with tools, but with patience. As our eyes adjusted to the darkness, we focused our ears on the slightest rustle, and then a deep growl. It came from the darkest corners of the forest. Immediately, we all changed direction, moving forward despite the dense forest, tree branches crashing into our faces, our feet caught in the roots, but we had to follow this sound. As we got closer, the pig's footsteps became clearer. The heavy, full thuds as it stepped on the ground. This was a huge pig, maybe over 250 kilos, and it was alone. This made it even more dangerous. Lone pigs are often aggressive, and fearless. While observing with the thermal camera, a white silhouette came into focus. It was walking slowly through the trees. My friend tapped me on the shoulder, asked me to move into position. It was as if we slowed down time. I looked through my binoculars. I set my line of fire. I held my breath. Just then, the pig turned its head, and we locked eyes, and an invisible line was drawn between us. We had to destroy each other to survive. Bang! The bullet hit him in the chest. He tried to take another step, but he couldn't. He collapsed. We ran to him. He was a giant. His body was strong enough to take down an ATV. To have hunted, this was more than an accomplishment. It meant that dozens of farmers working in the field all night could sleep peacefully. But this night won't end here, because deep in the forest, we still have other herds to track. A howl echoing deep in the forest got us moving again. We were still exhausted from the previous hunt, but of course, we couldn't afford to waste time, because wild boars keep moving throughout the night. They don't only damage farmers' crops. Sometimes they attack irrigation systems, beehives, and even small cattle. So every minute that passes is a greater loss for the villagers. As we drove through the darkness, the moonlight was fading and the dense trees made it almost impossible to see our surroundings. But with the thermal cameras and the guidance of the dogs, Of course, we had no trouble finding our target. One of the dogs in front suddenly stopped. It held its nose in the air and stayed still for a long time. This was a sign that the hunt was close. We stopped just before the dog started barking. We took up positions in silence, everyone's hands on the trigger. And then the familiar sound was heard again, the sound of the earth being scraped. Pigs sometimes take positions not only to hide, but also to attack. Especially male pigs, when they recognize danger, they choose to go straight for it instead of retreating. The grunting sounds coming from the bush ahead grew closer. Crushing branches, the creature's footsteps shook the earth. Even without seeing it, this boar made us feel how big it was. The hunters around silently set their targets, eyes locked on the binoculars. Minutes passed like hours, and finally, the giant creature appeared. Its eyes gleamed in the night vision binoculars. Its black and brown fur was completely covered in mud. Its body was large and muscular. This was an alpha pig that had spent years in the jungle. He must have outwitted many hunters, not only with his weight, but also with his intelligence. But tonight, things were different. My friends and I looked at each other, made brief eye contact, and signaled each other. I fired the first shot, aimed at your chest. The pig staggered but didn't run away. This showed his character. Despite his wound, he started running. Then, with the second and third shots, he suddenly collapsed. He moved a little, then he was motionless. We approached slowly, and when we reached him, we were all speechless. The size of the animal, of course, astounded us. It was almost up to my shoulder. It probably weighed more than 250 kilograms. Encountering such an animal at night is not something everyone dares to do. If you don't want to miss such stories and hunting memories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Dozens of videos full of this kind of content are waiting for you. With the boar neutralized, the dogs scattered, and the silence of the forest fell again. This silence whispered to us that the hunt was still on. Because in nature, there is never just one enemy. A different threat lurks around every corner. Especially in these areas, sows travel in herds and become even more dangerous with their young. In the early morning, the fog slowly began to envelop the valley. We could feel the cold air in our lungs as we breathed, but our minds were clear. The only thing that overcame our fatigue was the excitement of the hunt. We were alert with every step, every broken branch, every bird call, because this was when the pigs were at their peak. Suddenly, one of the dogs howled. This is the signal that the target is approaching. We picked up speed, always keeping an eye on the tracks on the ground. Fresh footprints, claw marks, and splashes of mud. The pigs had recently passed this way. We had no reason to give up the chase. Finally, their faces appeared in the fog. A group of three, a sow with cubs, and two medium-sized pigs following her. The big sow in the middle was the most dangerous. She would not want her cubs to be harmed and was ready to attack. We raised our guns, held our breath. I didn't fire the first shot. My friend on the right diagonal's gun went off. The sow gave a sudden scream, but of course she didn't run away. She ran straight in the direction of the sound. We were now the target. Within seconds, the second and third shots were fired. The sow was knocked down. The other two tried to escape, but they were surrounded. They were soon neutralized by my friends. There is no room for sentimentality in hunts like this. Maintaining the balance of nature requires courage and responsibility. Every pig shot is not just a number. Perhaps it saves the crops of several villages, protects a child's livestock, or prevents a beekeeper's labor from going to waste. We carefully checked the downed animals, cleaned our weapons, rounded up our dogs. The sun was slowly rising over the horizon. The color of the forest was changing from night blue to morning gray. Another night of hunting was over. But our mission was far from over, because there was still activity on the other side of the valley. Crossing the valley was not easy. After a night of hunting, fatigue was beginning to take its toll on our muscles. But that familiar feeling inside us didn't let any of us give up. Because this was not just a sport, it was a way of protecting nature, land, and labor.